Zydrunas Ilgauskas was a 7'3" center who had a soft touch while also having the abilities to grab boards and block shots at a high level, helping him become an NBA All-Star after facing numerous injuries that would end most players' careers, eventually going on to become the second option to LeBron James and his veteran, who taught him how to be a professional, being tied together as guiding the Cavs in LeBron's first go-around in Cleveland. This is a look back on Zydrunas Ilgauskas' career. Zydrunas Ilgauskas was born and raised in Kaunas, Lithuania, where he picked up the game of basketball. Eventually saw himself hitting a growth spurt and fill in, seeing Ilgauskas starting to get noticed. Soon he would turn pro, joining the local club Atletas in Lithuania, and 2 years later he was tearing apart the league, averaging 20.3 points, 12.8 rebounds, and 2.8 blocks per game, catching the eyes of the NBA as a big with touch and a natural feel for the game. And in the 1996 NBA draft, Zydrunas Ilgauskas would be selected by the Cleveland Cavaliers with the 20th overall pick. Ilgauskas was joining a middle-of-the-line Cavs team led by Terrell Brandon and Tyrone Hill. Ilgauskas was slated to come in right away and start, but things would go awry. Zydrunas Ilgauskas broke a bone in his right foot, ending his season before it ever started, with him missing the entire year. Without Ilgauskas, the Cavaliers would go 42-40, missing the playoffs. In the offseason, the Cavaliers would shake things up, being a part of a huge 3-team blockbuster deal that saw the Cavaliers trade away Terrell Brandon and Tyrone Hill for Shawn Kemp. Ilgauskas was fully covered and ready to start next season, anchoring the starting center position, creating a formidable front court with Shawn Kemp. Zydrunas Ilgauskas' rookie year averaged 13.9 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks a game. For his play, Ilgauskas would partake in the Rookie Challenge during All-Star Weekend and would win the MVP of the game. Along the way, he also would make All-Rookie First Team, helping the Cavaliers go 47-35, making the playoffs as a 6th seed, getting a first-round matchup against the Indiana Pacers, who had Reggie Miller, Mark Jackson, Antonio Davis, Rick Smits, and Dale Davis leading them. Over the series, Shawn Kemp looked like the best player, dominating. However, his supporting cast was only seemed to be Ilgauskas. With the Pacers having more depth and talent, they would win the series rather easily and convincingly 3-1. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, in his first playoff experience, played well, averaging 17.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks. After a successful year one, Ilgauskas would sign a contract extension to stay in Cleveland in 1998 that was worth $70.9 million over 6 years. Locking Zydrunas Ilgauskas down long-term seemed like a solid move after impressing through an early start to his career. Yet an all-too-familiar nightmare would strike again. 5 games into the season next year, Zydrunas Ilgauskas fractured his navicular bone in his left foot, ending his season early. And in the 5 games, Ilgauskas averaged 15.2 points, 1.4 blocks, and 8.8 rebounds. Without Ilgauskas to relieve ball pressure off of Shawn Kemp, the Cavaliers would take a step back, going 22-28, missing the playoffs. In the offseason, the Cavaliers would hit on their draft pick in selecting Andre Miller, helping improve the team down the line in one of the few bright spots in the season. Zydrunas Ilgauskas ended up missing all of this season as well, though, recovering from injury he had sustained the other year in his navicular bone, trying to get back to a point where he had no pain in his foot from playing basketball. In the offseason, the Cavaliers would decide to part ways with Shawn Kemp in a 3-team trade deal that netted them Chris Gatling and Clarence Weatherspoon. Zydrunas Ilgauskas would officially be back and ready to go next season after missing almost 2 years altogether off, seeing himself become the second option on the team to Andre Miller. The Cavaliers started the season off strong until again Ilgauskas had gotten injured, with him only playing in 24 games on the year, where he averaged 11.7 points, 1.5 blocks, and 6.7 rebounds. Before Ilgauskas went down, the Cavs seemed to be a playoff-bound team, but with him out, they would be anything but, going 30-52. In the offseason, the Cavaliers would trade away Chris Gatling for Ricky Davis, who was young and improving. Zydrunas Ilgauskas missed the start of next season, still recovering, but returned in December. Zydrunas Ilgauskas spent most of the season coming off the bench to Chris Mims, since Ilgauskas was not quite his old self yet. Zydrunas Ilgauskas on the year played in 62 games, averaging 11.1 points, 1.4 blocks, and 5.4 rebounds, seeing the Cavaliers struggle this season, going 29-53, missing the playoffs. In the offseason, the Cavaliers would make one good move in drafting Carlos Boozer. On the other hand, they made one bad move, trading away the team's best player in Andre Miller for Darius Miles, who had a lot of potential at the time but would never quite reach it, in a deal that could be viewed in a modern lens as tanking for LeBron James. The up-and-coming year, Zydrunas Ilgauskas had earned his starting spot back, and the NBA would finally get a chance to see what a fully Ilgauskas would look like, and he delivered, averaging 17.2 points, 1.9 blocks, and 7.5 rebounds, which helped him earn his first NBA All-Star appearance. Ricky Davis also had a breakout year on the season, becoming a 20-point-per-game scorer. But these were the only two bright spots on a Cleveland team this year, as they were engaged on a full-on tank for LeBron James, seeing the Cavaliers finish with the worst record in the league at 17-65. And the long-term play by the Cleveland Cavaliers would work for them, as in the offseason, as the ping pong balls just had worked their magic and fell for them, seeing the Cleveland Cavaliers get the number 1 overall pick, landing LeBron James. Zydrunas Ilgauskas would become LeBron James' vet, who he would come to for advice and the person James credits for showing him how to be a professional, among other things. Ilgauskas next season found himself being the second option in the offense, this time to LeBron and the emerging Carlos Boozer, with the Cavaliers trading away Ricky Davis early into the season to free up touches for the three of them. Zydrunas Ilgauskas averaged 15.3 points, 2.5 blocks, and 8.1 rebounds, helping see the Cavaliers improve this season to 35-47, yet missing the playoffs. In the offseason, the Cavaliers lost Carlos Boozer in free agency to the Utah Jazz, seeing the Cavaliers make a move for Drew Gooden to fill his role. Ilgauskas and LeBron improved their play with Boozer's departure, with Ilgauskas averaging 16.9 points, 2.1 blocks, and 8.6 rebounds, helping himself make it back to the All-Star game for the second time. With Ilgauskas and LeBron leading the Cavaliers, they seem to be on the up and up, going 42-40, but still missing the playoffs. In the offseason, the Cavaliers extended Ilgauskas again with a $55 million deal over 5 years, with his chemistry with LeBron being apparent and his successful seasons. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, playing a similar role to the year prior next season, averaged 15.6 points, 1.7 blocks, and 7.6 rebounds, all the while helping LeBron James, who was officially starting to look like a once-in-a-lifetime talent, helping the Cavaliers go 50-32, making the playoffs as a 4 seed. In round 1, the Cleveland Cavaliers faced the Washington Wizards, who had a big three of Gilbert Arenas, Caron Butler, and Anton Jamison. This series would have multiple close games, with James and Arenas battling, and by the end of Game 3, the Cavaliers would hold on to a 2-1 lead after LeBron James' game-winning basket with 5.7 seconds left. The Wizards bounced back in Game 4, winning it, creating a Game 5, which would be another tight one that saw the Cavaliers win late by 1 point, thanks again to a LeBron James basket. Game 6 was another close one late, with the Cavaliers trailing, as Damon Jones would enter the game for the very first time that night. And after the double came for LeBron James, Damon Jones found himself wide open, hitting the game-winning shot, sending Cleveland into round 2. In round 2, the Cavaliers matched up against the Detroit Pistons, who had a spread-out offensive attack with Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Wallace, Richard Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, and Ben Wallace. The series was evenly matched, with LeBron holding the Cavaliers in this series entirely, eventually taking the lead 3-2 in the series after holding on late in Game 4 and 5. Game 6, the Pistons held on to the lead late this time by 3 points, where they would foul LeBron James, who would have to intentionally miss his second free throw. It had almost worked out to perfection, as Ilgauskas tipped the ball up, but it just missed, seeing the Pistons force a Game 7. Game 7 would be all Detroit, as their depth was starting to pay out, sending the Cavaliers home. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, like everyone in the Cavaliers, played a smaller role this postseason to LeBron James, where he averaged 10.4 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 2.1 blocks. Next season, the Cavaliers would bring a similar squad back, poised to make a dent in the postseason. Zydrunas Ilgauskas played a similar role like he had during the playoffs, splitting time at center with Anderson Varejao, seeing himself average 11.9 points, 1.3 blocks, and 7.7 rebounds. His numbers were also slipping at the time, too, because he was dealing with a lot of off-the-court issues, as his wife had lost a pair of twins early in labor. The Cavaliers behind LeBron James would go 50-32 again, where they would meet the Washington Wizards round 1 again. This time saw it not be as close because the Wizards were without Gilbert Arenas and Caron Butler, resulting in the Cavaliers sweeping them entirely, with Ilgauskas grabbing 19 rebounds in the final game. Round 2, the Cavaliers faced the New Jersey Nets, who had Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, and Vince Carter. And outside of Game 4, every game was rather lopsided one way or another, yet LeBron was a man on the mission, propelling the Cavaliers to a 4-2 series win. And in the Eastern Conference Finals now, the Cavaliers found themselves meeting the team who knocked them out in the prior year in the Detroit Pistons. The series found itself in familiar territory, with it being tied up after 4 games, with each contest being close. In Game 5, LeBron James would arguably have his best ever playoff performance, truly putting the team on his back in a nail-biting performance. LeBron James would score the team's 25 final points, capping it off with a layup that helped put the Cavaliers over the top, winning the game, with his total ending up being at 48. Daniel Gibson Game 6 would play the role as the hero, helping the Cavaliers advance to the NBA Finals. And in the NBA Finals, awaiting the Cavaliers were the San Antonio Spurs, who had the big three of Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker. And in the NBA Finals, the Cavaliers seemed to run out of steam, as the Spurs handled them rather easily in a sweep 4-0. Over the run to the NBA Finals, Zydrunas Ilgauskas averaged 12.6 points, 0.8 blocks, and 9.7 rebounds. Next year, Ilgauskas would step up his play to the prior year, as the Cavs desperately needed him to. Zydrunas Ilgauskas was second on the team in scoring with 14.1 points, to go along with the team best 9.3 rebounds and 1.6 blocks, helping Cleveland go 45-37, getting into the playoffs again, where yet again they would find themselves playing the Washington Wizards, but without Gilbert Arenas this series, and the Cavaliers went up 3-1 after a Delonte West game winner. And in Game 5, the Wizards pulled one back after LeBron and Ilgauskas missed last-second shots. But Game 6, the Cavaliers would finally put away the Wizards, winning the series behind LeBron James' efforts. In Round 2, the Cavaliers faced the Boston Celtics with Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo, and Ray Allen. The series seemed to show the importance of home games, as the series was tied up after 6 games, with the home team always winning solidly for the most part. Game 7 was back in Boston, and LeBron James would put on a show, keeping the Cleveland Cavaliers in the game, but his best efforts was still not enough, seeing the Cavaliers sent home, with the Celtics going on to win the NBA championship this season. Over the postseason, Zydrunas Ilgauskas averaged 13.1 points, 1.1 blocks, and 7.5 rebounds. In the offseason, the Cleveland Cavaliers made a trade for Mo Williams, who would have a breakout season next year behind LeBron James. Zydrunas Ilgauskas this season started to play less minutes, with age starting to catch up to him, while also the team had Verage out to help play his minutes. But he was still effective in his time, averaging 12.9 points, 1 block, and 7.5 rebounds. With Ilgauskas playing the third option to Williams and James, the Cavaliers went 66-16, getting the number 1 seed. And in Round 1, the Cavaliers met the Pistons, who are now led by Allen Iverson, Richard Hamilton, and Tayshaun Prince. And the series ended up being rather lopsided, as Iverson was out, with the Cavaliers sweeping the Pistons. In Round 2, awaiting the Cavaliers was the Atlanta Hawks, who were headed by Joe Johnson and Josh Smith. Again, the Cavaliers were hot, steamrolling the Hawks rather easily 4-0. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Cavaliers would play the Orlando Magic, who were also clicking at the right time, behind Dwight Howard, Hedo Turkoglu, and Rashard Lewis. Cleveland entered the series as heavy favorites, with commercials even hyping up a potential finals matchup of LeBron versus Kobe. Orlando would steal Game 1 in Cleveland behind a late shot from Rashard Lewis, setting the tone early in the series. Game 2, LeBron James played the role of the hero, hitting a fadeaway 3 at the buzzer, tying things up in an iconic moment. Yet the Magic only seemed to gain more confidence from this game-winning shot, winning the next 2 games, taking a 3-1 lead. LeBron James took over Game 5, making it 3-2. Game 6 was all Orlando Magic, though, as Dwight Howard put up a monster performance, stunning the Cavaliers in the sports world, sending the Cavaliers home in 6 games. Over the run to the Eastern Conference Finals, Zydrunas Ilgauskas averaged 10.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 0.9 blocks. In the offseason, the Cavaliers traded for an aging Shaquille O'Neal, seeing Ilgauskas moved to the backup center position. And midway through the years, the Cavaliers continued to improve via trades, acquiring Anton Jamison. in a trade that involved Ilgauskas, but he would be waived shortly after, and funnily enough, found himself signing back with the Cleveland Cavaliers to finish the year, much to the chagrin of the fan base. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, in a smaller role for Cleveland this season, averaged 7.4 points, 0.8 blocks, and 5.4 rebounds, helping a competitive Cleveland Cavaliers team go 61-21, earning a number 1 seed. In round 1, the Cavaliers faced a young Chicago Bulls team led by Derrick Rose, Luol Deng, and Joakim Noah. This series seemed to highlight the youth of the Bulls and the veteran experience of the Cavaliers, with the Cavaliers controlling the series, winning in 5 games. In round 2, the Cavaliers met the Boston Celtics, in the team that had sent them home 2 years ago. The difference this go-around was Rajon Rondo was arguably at his peak, picking up a great performance and picking apart the Cavaliers at times. Cleveland seemed in the series early, but as it went along, it became very clear Boston was the better team, and LeBron James alone could not put Cleveland over the top. The Celtics sent home the Cavaliers in 6 games. Ilgauskas in the playoffs would play here and there, averaging 1.7 points, 1 block, and 1.6 rebounds. In the offseason, Zydrunas Ilgauskas was a free agent and would find himself departing from Cleveland, joining the Miami Heat, because LeBron James had also joined the Heat and wanted him to come join him in a quest for a ring. On a Miami Heat team, he was finding himself joining a newly formed Big Three with LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. Ilgauskas would split time starting and coming off the bench in Miami, averaging 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 0.8 blocks, with a nice touch on the season being the only Heat player not hated in Cleveland upon the return there, garnering some cheers actually. Ilgauskas helped the Heat go 58-24, making the playoffs as a 2 seed. And in the playoffs, the Heat would absolutely run through the East, dominating quality teams along the way in the 76ers, Celtics, and the Bulls. Awaiting the Heat in the NBA Finals were the Dallas Mavericks, led by Dirk Nowitzki and Jason Terry. The Mavericks, behind Dirk's phenomenal play, had upset several teams to make it here, and entered as heavy underdogs because of Miami's dominance over the East up to this point. Game 1 went Miami's way. Game 2, the Mavericks stunned the Heat late, coming back from down 15, winning on a Dirk Nowitzki layup. Game 3, Chris Bosh played the hero, giving the Miami Heat the advantage 2-1, before Dallas responded, winning games 4 and 5 behind Dirk Nowitzki's play. And in Game 6, Jason Terry's play would send the Miami Heat home, where they would be eliminated as the Mavericks pulled off the upset. Zydrunas Ilgauskas in the postseason run to the NBA Finals found himself out of the rotation, with the Heat deciding to play small, as he would average 3.6 points and 3.6 rebounds. In the offseason, Zydrunas Ilgauskas decided to retire, citing that he wanted to spend more time with his family and the wear and tear he had put on his body over the years in the league, was making it the right time to retire. Over 13 seasons in the NBA, Zydrunas Ilgauskas averaged 13 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks, and not long after retirement, Ilgauskas' number would be retired by the Cleveland Cavaliers for his everlasting impact on the team and its culture. Zydrunas Ilgauskas will forever be remembered and tied to LeBron James as his right-hand man and a vet while in Cleveland, having a career that saw him become a fan favorite of the city for fighting back from numerous injuries that may have ended other people's career, becoming an NBA All-Star while helping the Cavaliers compete for a championship, showcasing his unique, soft touch for a big man, while still being able to grab rebounds and block shots at a high level, becoming the Cavaliers' all-time leader in blocks. Zydrunas Ilgauskas' career is what happens when you keep getting back up. Thanks for watching this video on Zydrunas Ilgauskas' career. If you want to see any videos in the future about any other random players, leave them in the comments below, and I may or may not decide to do a video on them. Thanks again for watching. This has been Skid Denver.